There's a lot of negativity around Canada. Students are complaining that there are no jobs, there are housing crisis, and many more. Is that the real fact? So today I've invited Shafuli from T.Immigration, who's going to discuss with me in detail about the issues and the concerns which is being raised by so many people on social media. But before that, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Sarica and welcome to Your Knowledge Buddy. If you want to study abroad, including Canada and in this listed countries, my team can help you free of cost. You have to simply go and fill the form which is provided in my video description and pinned comment. So without any further delay, let's get started with today's video. Hi Shafuli, welcome back again to Your Knowledge Buddy. And if you don't mind, can you please introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Thank you so much, Sarica, for having me again on your channel. It's always a pleasure. My name is Shafali Kapoor, and I'm a licensed Canadian immigration consultant. I am licensed to practice Canadian immigration law and represent my clients in their applications with the Government of Canada. As far as the name of my firm is concerned, it's T.Immigration, and I'm based in Toronto in Ontario in Canada.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So, Shafuli, one of the reasons why I have you here is because I hear so much about Canada. And mainly I've been hearing a lot of negative news, regarding jobs or housing prices. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down my questions. I'm going to start maybe with the bad news, which I've heard, and then maybe you can add some flavors to the good news, which you may know, which I may not know, or my audience may not know. So if you don't mind, can we just start talking about the jobs at the moment? Because generally what I hear from the students I interact, they're saying there's no job at all in Canada. So what's happening about the job market in Canada? What do you think?
Yes, to be honest, Sarika, to some extent that is true, and especially with international students. What happened was that, as I'm sure, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background, I'm just going to go a little back and then step forward. Canada has always remained a very popular choice for people from other parts of the world, right? Especially because immigration in UK, immigration in the US, immigration in Australia, immigration in New Zealand, they were always tight, right? It was very hard to get PR there. Canada had always been liberal, at least for the last 8 to 9 years. We've seen liberal policies. The government was liberal, so the policies were liberal, and there were so many international students who would come to Canada with a hope that they will ultimately get permanent residence, because that is how the government has always projected it. They had programs for them for PR, and they had work permit options for them. So there was always an option for these people to settle. During COVID, what happened was that the Canadian government opened the floodgates for temporary residence. When I say floodgates, they literally allowed everybody to come to Canada. There was no holding back on the number of people who came to Canada as temporary residents. Between 2020 and 2023, July, we had 0.7 million temporary residents living in Canada. That includes people with work permits, visitors, and international students. All of these three categories of people had a hope or a dream to get permanent residence in Canada. And even the government's verbiage has changed, and they say, oh, but we never promised permanent residence to you guys. Well, you did not, but the programs that you had that led to permanent residence was quite an indication for these people that, okay, you come here and then you study here, you give us all that money, and then you get your work permit, and then you can apply for permanent residence to Canadian Experience Class. But what happened now, that because there are so many temporary residents in Canada, but the number of people who can get permanent residence is limited. The government cannot make all those 2.7 million permanent residents. Many of these people did not probably have the right skill set to get permanent residence in Canada. So now what has happened is two problems. One, these people are here, but they can't get permanent residence because there are no programs for them, because there are just so many. Number two, the job market is also limited because not everybody has the skill set to do the jobs that are available. Now, your next question I know is going to be, but then what are the jobs that are available? Again, this has two prongs. The first prong is that because of there being so many people in Canada, Canada was not ready for this kind of people in terms of infrastructure, in terms of housing, in terms of medical facilities. Now, all these people, especially students and work permit holders, they get free healthcare as well. All of these people have now, if they're in Canada, they seek the medical facilities, they get that support. And then obviously they all have to live somewhere as well. But Canada was not ready in terms of the infrastructure for these people. So now what has happened is that because there's so many people, there's a housing crisis because there are only so many houses that people can get on rent. The rental market is going up. It's becoming unaffordable to rent places. The housing market in terms of buying was always very hard because of foreign buyers who were investing in Canada, despite the Canadian government putting restrictions and tax on foreign buyers. But still, that market was, sort of swamped by foreign buyers, investors. And now these people are left with no houses, or maybe 10 people living in cramped basements. The landlords sometimes taking advantage of that. Again, I'm not saying all landlords do that, but some landlords take advantage of that because they think, okay, if we can rent our two-bedroom basement for $800 per person and 10 people live there, that's $8,000 right there for them, right? That's one problem. The second problem is not all these people who came had the right skill set to integrate into the Canadian economy. Some of them came as spouses of international students, didn't have to do English tests, didn't have need any education. They ultimately came here and started driving Uber, doing Instacart, Skip the dishes, and all of that. So they were really not contributing the actual needs of the Canadian labor markets, and they're just doing that self-employment jobs or delivery jobs or working with Amazon and things like that. They don't have the skill set again to integrate into the Canadian economy. Now, Canada wants to build houses. Canada needs people to work in healthcare because the hospitals are overloaded because there's so many people in Canada. So what does that mean? Canada needs to build that. And if Canada needs to build that, then Canada needs people who are going to work in those industries. But we don't have those people. We have people who came to Canada with no English, with limited education, with limited experience. So they can't work in healthcare. They cannot work in trades because a lot of trade jobs needs licenses or previous experiences or some sort of tradesman apprentice experience, and they don't have that. So they don't get jobs. All they get jobs is in, doing Uber and all of that, or they get jobs to do work in restaurant industry that doesn't require license. But how many people can restaurants also accommodate? Then if you talk to employers, they have serious issues. They say that we can hire them. Okay, we do have the jobs, but they necessarily are not trained in the sense that I get employers come and tell me, we have to train them to even wash their hands before they come back to the job. Like we have to remind them multiple times, wash your hands. You can't come back to the job and touch food without washing your hands. So they have other issues. So there is a problem is that there is a disparity between the skill set that we got in Canada at this point and the actual needs of the Canadian labor market.
Okay, so what I kind of made a mental note, Canada need construction workers like trade jobs like construction, maybe plumbing, maybe carpenting, I believe. I understand that. And second, I understood about the healthcare jobs, maybe nurses, carers, or maybe doctors. And the third one, which I already know because I have friends in IT, information technology, which is of course in huge demand. Can you also name more you think, that there are more skills which are in demand and they don't have
so
those?
STEM is a big industry, and STEM covers a lot of occupations. There's healthcare, the trades in construction, manufacturing as well it's a high demand occupation or industry. We have requirements in agriculture at this current moment. Not a lot, but still there's a requirement in agriculture. And then there is also requirement in transportation occupations like truck drivers, transportation managers. But again, these could change next year because they keep changing the needs. But I think trades, construction, manufacturing, healthcare is going to remain. They're not going anywhere.
Okay, so you're saying if people or say students or whoever are in Canada who already got the skills, they may already have a job or they can find jobs. And for future students who are planning to come, say, in September or next year, the list of jobs which you mentioned, if they have those skills, they may not struggle because they still need people with those kind of skill sets. And it will be easy for them to land those jobs, right?
Either they have that kind of skill set or they come here to study those kind of jobs, those kind of courses, and then ultimately work in those industries, or they find jobs directly in those industries. For example, STEM category. It's easier to find jobs in STEM category from outside Canada. People also come on intra-company transfers. So those people, it's going to be way easier for them to get permanent residence, at least until next year.
When people talk so much negative about Canada, we don't go back and validate those people who are saying that, are those people who have no skills at all. Maybe they are the people who are struggling because they don't have the skills which are needed by Canada. And you know what, I'm able to relate to it because this is exactly the situation in the UK. There are jobs, but they are jobs for certain skills or in industry where they need people. But the students or dependents who come here, they don't have those skills. And of course, those people, they will struggle and they will go out and say there are no jobs at all. So those are the things I'm able to relate to it. So Shafali, I understand now the major issue. And I believe that's the reason for the housing issue as well, right? So do you think it's getting better now, or for when students come, do they have to arrange something in advance? What should students do if they come in the future?
Yes, of course. Accommodation should always be, should be looked at before even arriving in Canada.
Okay.
The Canadian government is also making some changes. They have put a cap on number of temporary residents that will come to Canada. It's not like an open door for students anymore. There is a cap of number of students who will be allowed to come to Canada for the next 2 years. So it's not 360,000 people will be allowed, given study permits, to come to Canada. So it's not that anybody and everybody can now come. It's only now that the government has realized that. Also, what the government is trying to do is that people who are already inside Canada, they're trying to remove them. Now, who are they trying to? It's not that they're just trying to remove people, but people who are not eligible for extension of work permits, they're not going to extend their work permits. So basically, people who will not be able to continue figuring out a way to get permanent or figure out a way to work in an industry which is in high demand, they will ultimately have to leave Canada. The government of Canada is trying to maintain an equilibrium. Not trying to maintain, there's no equilibrium right now, but they're trying to get to a point where an equilibrium is maintained, where the number of temporary residents and permanent residents are almost equal, so that everybody has an opportunity to get permanent residence in Canada. The government is also trying for people who are already here, have experiences, have contributed to the Canadian economy by working in skilled jobs. They're doing Canadian experience. They just started doing Canadian experience class draws. So we are going to see a change, but again, it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take at least a year to 2 years for things to get better. So for people who are going to come from outside Canada, yes, of course, they must do their research. There are a couple of things that people should keep in mind. One, the choice of program needs to be a good choice of program. Just don't pick up a business program or an arts and science program. Don't come here after grade 12. You're not going to succeed in this country. There's no point working as an Uber driver. These are side hustles. I don't remember when did this become a mainstream job. These were always supposed to be side hustles that people are doing as full-time jobs now, because they think they have the flexibility. Again, not degrading any job. Every job is great, but again, ultimately, the onus to grow our skills lies within us. Life is not always all about money, right? Money comes. It's a byproduct. If you do good work, you do hard work, money will eventually come. We all go through that life cycle. People don't get it. And that's because of immaturity. A lot of young children come here. After grade 12, the exposure is different. The culture is different. They think it's all about just money. And then, they start doing jobs. They don't try to enhance their own skills. And that's why they struggle.
Okay. So what you are also saying, of course, you should have skills, but you should also have experience. You better do bachelor's in your country and then maybe gain experience, then come to master's.
You will have maturity, you will have experience, you will have the knowledge, you'll get a better program. Even if you're coming here after grade 12, then make sure that you're doing a 3-year program, or you're doing a program in a high demand occupation, so that ultimately there's a pathway for you for permanent residence. That's number one. Number two, come with a mindset that you are going to grind for at least 4 to 5 years. Any new country you move to, things don't change overnight. Luxury doesn't come overnight. It's going to first hit rock bottom before it starts getting better.
And I know you're talking from your experience, or maybe any experience. It happened with everybody.
Anybody who's doing well at this point, or anybody who's been able to achieve something in life, has hit rock bottom at some time. Even people who have established themselves also go through those phases where they hit rock bottom. Might not be professionally, might be personally.
That's so true. Amazing. So I believe we have touched upon so many topics today, Shafali. We talked about the skills gap. We talked about housing, job, whether it's a job or not job, and what is the reason behind it and why there was so negativity. Any closing statement for my audience, whether they should move to Canada or not, or how they should prepare, or what's the vibe like Canada? Anything that you would like to say?
So this is one thing that I always say. Never go just by social media. What you hear on social media, whether it's good or bad, is not the hard line. That's not how it is for everybody. There are people here who are very happy. There are people who are struggling. It completely depends on their energies, their work ethic, their skill set, their education background, their determination. And that could be different for you. And I don't say, when I say this statement, the next statement, I don't say it in terms of, in a derogatory way, or to undermine anybody's effort, but I'm just simple statement. An apple cannot be compared to an orange, with apple or orange, neither of them being better than each other, but they're two different fruits. Similarly, every person has a unique journey. Every person has a different mindset. Everybody has a different destiny. So just by what you see on social media, do your own research. Yes, things are hard. But we've had times in the past where things have been hard and then things ultimately get better. Do your own research, do your own assessment, talk to people personally. Don't go by what is on social media. Talk to people who are already here, different people, learn from their experiences, and then decide if this sacrifice is what you want to make. And it is a sacrifice. Even if you have a job that you come to Canada with, it's going to be hard initially. You don't have friends here, you don't have relatives here. You're going to come here, you're going to find a job, you have to find a new place. You probably own a house back home, but here you'll have to live on rent. You'll have to probably even share. You might not have a car in the beginning. You'll have to go in the buses. So it's a sacrifice. And depending on what phase of life. So don't go, my concluding statement is only this: don't go by what you see on social media 100%, because a lot of that is not necessarily 100% true for you. It might be true for them, but not might be true for you.
I think that's right. I believe this video is going to help all my students or people who are planning to move to Canada. And guys, if you have any questions for Shafali or me, you can leave it in the comment section below. And if you need any legal advice or services from Shafali, I'll provide her links in my video description and my pinned comment. So go and speak to her if you want. Thank you very much, Shafali. Thank you for coming and recording this video with me.
Thank you, Sarica.
Thank you.